Hey guys, Baz here. Welcome to the Master Mode for the Worthy Yo-Yo playthrough. Yeah, the only rule for this challenge is I can only use yo-yos. Enjoy, guys. Alright, so I start the playthrough off by gathering wood like any other Terrarian, make some basic wooden armor, then go find the corruption like a normal human being, and die. Shook to the core by my death, I just mine down at spawn and find some topaz. That can be good for a gem hook. But then I die again on a minecart track. I return to the minecart track and actually find my first life crystal, which is very welcome. I find a good amount of iron, another life crystal, a mushroom biome, which always has good loot, and some more death. I came back to the mushroom biome after dying, and actually found out that there was a lot of platinum right under where I died. I then returned to the surface and made some upgrades, got some iron armor with that juicy amount of iron I got. And I actually ended up making my first accessory, the white string. Made a full set of platinum armor, and then with that, I went to the jungle to get an actually good yo-yo instead of the wooden one. Because the wooden one, honestly, it just doesn't do anything. I died really fast in the jungle, as to be expected. But then a blood moon happened before I could go back to the jungle, so I just made a little lava pit, waited it out, and I sadly didn't get anything. I went to the jungle, started getting some basic loot. After a while, I got what I needed to make the Amazon. The Pharaoh Claws I found in the jungle will actually be very useful for me because Pharaoh Claws will let me use my yo-yo infinitely. And I actually found my best friend, the Turtle Pet, so I'll definitely be using that the rest of the playthrough. I also ran into the Skeleton Merchant, which of course has counterweights, so I sold a bunch of my crap and got one. The Stylist also turned up, so I rescued her. And then I found a band of regen in the mushroom biome. Typical, the mushroom biome always has great stuff. And then even later, I actually found the Hermes boots I was looking for. So it was time to fight the Eye of Cthulhu. I went back up to the surface, made my arena, waited for night, and then fought it. I made myself a new fishing rod with the Demonite I got from the Eye. I went and smashed a Shadow Orb because the goblins need to be defeated. I got kind of bored waiting for the goblins, so I went to the corruption and just started killing Eater of Souls, and I actually got an Ancient Shadow helmet, which was very nice and may or may not be used later. After a while, the goblins did show up, and I fought them. I died only once, which I am very happy about. My next priority was, of course, to find the goblin, so I went down underground and I did find it. I didn't have my money with me though, because I don't have a merchant and I don't have a piggy bank, so I had to come back up to the surface, grab it, go back down, and then I bought the rocket boots and the Tinkerer's Workshop. But it was worth it because now I could get Spectre boots, which are a game changer for me in pretty hard mode. I started crafting some blocks for a house that'll probably look familiar to you guys if you watched my last video. Once that was done, I went and started making my Eater of Worlds arena. Bombs were super important for the arena making because I cannot mine Evanstone. I had to make some temporary houses to get the Demolitionist. Once I finished the arena, I actually did some fishing to get some endurance and wrath potions. Very useful things. And did some last minute reforges on some of my accessories. I got the Sharktooth necklace while I was building the house because blood moons would not stop happening while I was building the house. It was very annoying. I actually decided to equip my Ancient Shadow helmet and the chestplate I got while making the arena for the fight because I'm a melee character. I started the fight with the Eater of Worlds, and sadly, I died. But then I had a revelation. I just remembered that I wasn't using the white string, which would have made the fight a lot easier because I could have stayed farther away from the boss. Don't ask why I wasn't using the white string, you will not get an answer. My theory of the white string being useful was proved correct when I fought the Eater of Worlds again, because using the white string I was able to kill the Eater of Worlds without too much issue. I could now make a Nightmare pickaxe, so I did, and then I farmed some Eye of Cthulhu's with my remaining suspicious looking eyes, just to get some money. Once I was done with that, I started bombing my way to hell. just gathered some hellstone so I could make some molten armor, because that's the best armor I can get in pre-hard mode, so why not? Alright, so I got molten armor now, so it was time for Skeletron. So I just went, chopped some trees, made an arena over the dungeon. Finally made a cooking pot, made some good food, and got Skeletron. I immediately went into the dungeon right when he died because I don't like knockback. The only thing I really needed from the dungeon was the Cobalt Shield. I did find the mechanic, so that was nice. I could finish off the house that you saw in the last video. I also found an alchemy station, which would be great for making potions. After a while, I did find my prize, the Cobalt Shield, and then I immediately went and gathered some obsidian to upgrade it. Sadly, the last thing that I thought I could do in pre-hard mode was the Wall of Flesh, so that meant it was time for the Waff Path. This has got to be one of my least favorite parts of the entire game. I'm not even joking. I could rant for so long about how much I don't like it. The worst part was, I was going to add passive healing across the entire bridge. I did finish the regular path without the passive healing, so I just decided to take a break before I lost complete brain function and farm for the cascade with a statue I found in the jungle. It makes it a lot faster to farm for the cascade because, if you didn't know, any mob in hell can drop the cascade. So, why not use this statue? I can just sit here and kill them, I guess. Another thing I did before doing the passive healing on my bridge was actually try to get the fuzzy carrot. So I had to do some angler quests, but it's only 5, it's not a big deal. And the fuzzy carrot's good because it's actually pretty fast. I also remembered another way I can increase my damage was to actually get a sharpening station. I forgot about it until now, so I decided to go find one. And I did find one after like 2 hours. Alright, now, just watch how long it takes me to make this passive healing area for the bridge. And this is sped up, mind you. Imagine how long it's going to take me to put this along the entire hell bridge that spans the entire hell area. Just think about that for a second. Imagine my suffering. With my last remaining brain cells after finishing the passive healing, I went and just had to do some fishing because my world was unkind to me and didn't give me an egglet again, so I tried to fish for that, and a frog leg because you guys have been asking me to use amphibian boots for a bit now, so I'm deciding to use them for this Wall of Flesh fight. Maybe they'll be useful for the jump height. With my last attempt of procrastination for the Wall of Flesh fight, I also remembered that the Witch Doctor sells a crafting station. I don't know what it's called, but you can make flasks with it. And I could make a poison flask that could increase my damage. Queen Bee had to die, so she did. I actually got the honeycomb from her treasure bag, so I could upgrade my Sharktooth necklace to the Stinger necklace, which was very welcome. One last thing I thought about before I fought the Wall of Flesh was that Inferno Potions actually exist, which could be a good help against the Hungry. So I made myself a fireproof bug net, lava-proof bug net, sorry, and I actually gathered some of the bait in hell because that is the only way to fish in lava and pre-hard mode, and the only fish that make Inferno Potions are in lava. So I found a giant lava pool and sat there for like an hour and a half getting fish. There was no more procrastination for me to do, so I dropped the voodoo doll in the lava and started the fight. And from the very beginning of the fight, I could kind of tell that this wasn't even possible.
What?
Guys, I'm sorry,
But you can't do this to me.
I offered you friendship, and you spat in my face.
I literally couldn't even get close to the Wall of Flesh. The Hungry were doing way too much damage because it's for the Willy, and I could only really hit them. And then when I finally could get a little bit closer to the Wall of Flesh, when I killed some of the Hungry, they just respawn. And like, the damage is just so high. I don't see a way to like, survive. I kept trying and trying, I couldn't figure it out, so I'm sorry. I know you guys were thinking I was gonna pull something crazy today with this video, but not today, I'm sorry. I feel bad because I wanted you guys to have a good video, you know, a video of me succeeding, but, you know, sometimes things don't work out. That's okay. Please add something that can make this possible in 1.4.4. There were rumors or a leak saying that he was gonna add some yo-yos or something like that, so maybe then. I don't know, but that's gonna end it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video.